Welcome, everyone. We are excited to have you with us today. We are recording today's session, so if you could go ahead and turn off your video and mute yourselves to make sure that we are getting the best video available. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation, and I will share your questions with our presenter. Nancy Heron is running tech for us today. Thank you, Nancy. As I said, we are recording the session. Alice will share the link to the session in a follow-up email. If you are uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change your name to anonymous and then private message Nancy with your name for our attendance. Also, if your Zoom name doesn't match the name you're registered with, if you could please change your name on the Zoom or let Nancy know. That way we can make sure we've got you down for attendance. I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I am on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sana people. Our ongoing colonial presence on indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. In just a moment, I'm going to put a couple links in the chat about land acknowledgements and about those people groups. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome our speaker today. Johnnie Smith is the Outreach and Education Director for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Johnnie, we're happy you could join us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Wow, well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I will spare you guys looking at me and go ahead and share my screen so we can get into this. Hopefully you can see my screen now, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, so when Sarah first contacted me and was talking to me about how much growth and new member organizations and individual members are a part of Texas Children in Nature Network now, I was just so excited to be able to present some information about what my group, Outreach and Education, does in Texas Parks and Wildlife. And Sarah, it's a great problem to have so many new members. Congratulations. So let's go ahead and see if I can get this running. I've got my notes on one computer and the presentation on another. So it may be just a little bit of a lag, but let me see if I can do that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to labor to try and show you a little bit about just really how small our piece of the Texas Parks and Wildlife pie is. There are many, many ways that you can interact with our department, and we hope that you interact in as many ways as you can. Down here on the lower level there, you can see on the very bottom line, there are 13 divisions that support the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And we're located in the communications division. We are the only part of the communications division that has an outreach component, a direct outreach component. We are the magazine, we are the PBS show, we are marketing, we're of course outreach and education, we are creative services and our website, and in all those ways we communicate with the public and we perform outreach and provide information to the public about how they can recreate in the outdoors and do so responsibly and stay within the laws and regulations, you know, that exist in the various ways that you can recreate. So here's our communications division, and we're about 70 folks or so. Down below in that one subsection there is outreach and education. Over there on the far right hand side, and now this is a zoomed in to my group specifically. And outreach and education is composed of, we have about 25 or 30 staff depending on the time of year. We hire 4 or 5 interns each year, and Hunter Education there on the left-hand side, they often hire temp staff during their high season to help assist with the phone calls, folks trying to make sure that they've got their hunter safety documented and that they're ready to hunt their season of choice. We are hunter education, as I said. We're outreach and recruitment under Rob Owen. I failed to mention Steve Hall is the manager under Hunter Ed. Outreach and recruitment is, if you've ever been to the State Fair or any of our large outreach presences where you see the Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Operation Game Thief trailer, or some of the aspects that we used to have in our big expos annually in Austin, that's this group, the outreach and recruitment group. In addition, all of our archery, our community archery efforts, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on, there in this group as well as the National Archery in the Schools program. Conservation education is next over, managed by Melissa Felty. I still sometimes call her Melissa Alderson. She was relatively recently married and had that name change, but our email system has not yet caught up. So you'll see that later on when I provide everybody's contact information at the end of the presentation. In conservation education in her group, that's where we have Project Wild and the suite of Project Wild curricula, the nature tourism program, which I'll talk in greater detail a little bit later on, plus all of our community water education efforts are in that group. Lastly, and certainly not least, is the aquatic education group under Karen Marks' management. And in there is fishing, angler education, fly fishing, regular fishing, everything that you could want to know about how to recreate in the outdoors and in an aquatic environment and the habitats that you're going to be in. And it's just really a great program as well. We'll dig into all that a little bit in just a moment. I just wanted you to kind of see, we are, I think, a relatively large group, but we cover the whole state. And so if you'll allow me, this is a little bit montage of our group and the things that we are involved in. And while this slide is up, I'm just going to camp out here for a moment, and I want to share a few things with you, just some basic facts that will help you understand not only what we do, but how and why we're funded, and how and what role you and the rest of the citizenry play in that. It's really a pretty fascinating model that I'm going to get into. But so one of the things that we're really focusing on recently, and that you did not see in that last org chart, we have a couple of additions. We have just hired 2 new staff members. There are R3 coordinators, and R3 is recruitment, retention, and reactivation. What we're finding is that not everybody in Texas enjoys the outdoors in the same ways as others. And the way that we're funded is really reliant on folks having fishing and license purchases. They're choosing to recreate in the outdoors through one of our licensed activities. As you'll see in a moment, it's a user pay model that has just really been successful in North America. But we're finding that because we are reliant on those license sales, that as we experience fluctuations in those sales, we really try to reach out and make sure that folks understand the power behind their dollar. So that's what R3 is all about. We're trying to work hard to recruit and retain folks that are active in the outdoors. And for those who have had family circumstances that have led them away from recreating or being active in the outdoors, and all the wonderful health benefits that are obtained in doing so for yourself and your family, oftentimes they just need an invitation back. And so that's that reactivation piece. What happens in North America is that, every bit of sporting goods that are sold, there are sporting goods sales taxes collected at the user end. And as the products are manufactured, the manufacturers pay excise taxes, all into pots of money that end up funding everything that we do. wildlife and aquatic habitat restoration, um, rescue of species, game species and non-game species alike, working really hard to keep them off the endangered species list. To identify those species that need to be managed with greatest concern in our state. And we couldn't do any of those things without the North American model of conservation funding. It is the user pay model, and as I said, you know, we just rely heavily on that entire process. As you can imagine, the money is that is paid in by manufacturers and by folks that purchase sporting goods across the country. Those are apportioned to the states based on their population and their land size and other elements. So it is a basic part of our funding. And a couple of years back, I heard a podcast that was just really genius. It was a couple of folks who had nothing at all to do with hunting, but they wanted folks to know that you could buy a federal duck stamp, and that all of the monies that you used to purchase that duck stamp went towards conservation of those types of wetland species. And so they were just going around the country in a van selling duck stamps and encouraging people to be a duck stamp collector, whether they hunted or not, because it was a way to put their dollars directly to work. I'd encourage you to consider something similar, but licenses that are sold through the department, want you to know that those are a primary funding mechanism and just so vital to everything that we do. So I would encourage you, if you're a licensed buyer that has lapsed, it's about time to renew your license. It's September. And if you have folks that like to recreate, we have so many different ways. You can purchase the annual public land permit to access all of our WMAs and other leased lands for $48 a year. What a deal. If you're only wanting to bird and be primarily non-consumptive, there is a $12 permit that grants you much of the same access. And so there's a way for you to get into the outdoors, and every dollar that you spend doing so does help the department do what we do. Okay, so that's the North American model. I also wanted to tell you just a little bit about some legislation I'm sure you have heard about, but I'm just going to drive it home a little bit more. It's the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. And I would really be remiss if I didn't bring this up. This act is going to take advantage of fees that are already collected for development on public land, energy development on public land. These fees, these dollars are already in a pot of money that is going to be able to be portions of it are going to be able to be dispersed to the states to enable us to do work that will continue to keep Texas endangered species, Texas species of greatest conservation need, off the federal listing of endangered species. That's the primary intent behind the bill. And it means something like $50 to $60 million annually to the state of Texas. This is great. This is a great program that will give the department a brand new way and capacity that we have not had before. 15% of those dollars annually are dedicated to outreach and education activities and recreation. So in my group, we will be a huge beneficiary of these monies, and we will be expanding our operations greatly if the bill passes. So we're encouraging everybody to be involved in the civic process. And if you are so led to support that bill, we just encourage you to do that. All righty, let me switch slides now and we'll go ahead and jump into the angler education program. But before I get into each of these programs, Sarah, how did you want to deal with questions? Do you want to just have some time at the end, or can folks go ahead and just put them into the chat as they go, or are you going to let them pop in?
Let's do, they can put them in as they go, and then maybe as you finish each program, if there's any questions, I can share them about that program. That way we're not at 3:15 and asking questions about angler ed and folks are trying to remember what you just talked about.
Sure. Okay, that sounds fantastic. And are there any questions right now about that North American model conservation
do.
funding
We
or any of
just
that?
got one.
All right.
From Michelle, you mentioned fishing and hunting licenses, but does the Texas State Park Pass help with funding the parks also?
Helps with funding the parks, certainly. And the parks, and then of course the parks are indirectly involved in managing those lands and the species that are present there. Primarily, it happens through the Wildlife Division, through the other funding model for conservation. But yes, every dollar that you spend in parks helps support the parks as well.
That is our only question so far.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so angler education, aquatic education. The program goal is to increase participation in recreational fishing and to teach youth and adults how to be a safe and ethical angler. We do that through really enhancing your program potentially with the ability to teach fishing and to let folks fish, perhaps on your site. We have a fantastic team that leads the angler education program. They are there from your left to your right. Adam Comer, who is in Central Texas, Karen Marks, who is the manager, Kira Kwam in North Texas, Greg Akins down in Houston, and Heather England, who is our aquatic education administrative assistant. She has just proven herself to be invaluable and was really, really critical in us being able to have such a presence as we did online during COVID. It's nice to have a techie on your team. We're still finalizing our numbers from FY22, so I apologize that I don't have those numbers here for you, but here are the highlights from FY21. You know, this team conducted 258 events with attendees that numbered over 15,000. That North American model of conservation funding that I talked about a little earlier, and all those monies go into a big pot, and then we ask for it back from the feds by telling them what kind of good work we're going to do with those dollars. And they fund us 75 cents on the dollar. The other 25 cents we have to come up with ourselves. And you can do that through cash or in the case of this program, through in-kind match, the volunteer hours. We have a negotiated rate of $24 an hour for our volunteers, and those volunteers contributed 8,500 service hours and an in-kind value of over $200,000 that matched our aquatic education grant. And so a program such as this can perpetuate itself and grow within the bounds of the apportionment that the state receives. In addition, they hold aquatic education instructor workshops, and this is a good place for me to stop and talk about our pyramid scheme that we run here in Texas Parks and Wildlife. It's the train the trainer model. How do you think we reach or try to reach all 29 million Texans across the state with about 25 staff members? It's really tough. So we do have a structure of volunteers and volunteer instructors and volunteer leaders across the state, across each of our programs. We do try to standardize that approach across the programs because it is a really good and sustainable model wherever federal dollars are involved. So Karen has, hundreds of area chiefs that are those volunteer regional leaders that she relies on. Those area chiefs conduct instructor workshops, and they pass along that knowledge and experience and skills and tips and tricks right on down the line. And then those instructors are able to hold public events and just expose the Texans to how much fun and how easy it is to fish and how to recreate responsibly and recycle your monofilament line and all of those things. We really work hard to make sure that they understand that they're in an aquatic habitat and to to behave responsibly and what it takes for that habitat to run. It's not just the game species that you're interested in, it's all of those non-game species in the trophic pyramid that below them that have to exist and be healthy in order for folks to enjoy catching game fish. So we do try to tell the whole story. In addition to all of those trainings and public events, and then folks working hard around the state to present fishing to Texans, we also try to place gear wherever we can so that we can let folks know cost should not be a barrier to being able to fish if they would like to. If you're in a state park, there is no charge for fishing. A license is not even required. And many state parks, 38 of them, are tackle loaner sites. So you can borrow the fishing gear right there at the state park or at 7 other non-Texas Parks and Wildlife sites around the state in cities and community parks. We're placing those in schools and libraries as well as part of a new initiative. And so we're really trying to get the word out about the tackle loaner program. It's a low bar, a low threshold, so that folks can try it out and see if they like it and get their kids introduced to fishing. In FY21, there were 1,500 borrowers and 350 of those were first-time anglers, and 235 caught their very first fish because of the tackle loaner program. We're really proud of it. And so Adam runs that for us, and you'll be contacting Adam if you're interested to try and cultivate a tackle loaner program, perhaps at your site or at your school. Here's an example of what's in a typical tackle loaner kit. So you're really set to hit the water and do it safely and do it legally and enjoy and understand what you're doing. Many of the public events involve the Take Me Fishing trailer. We really are proud of this exhibit trailer. It's an eye-grabbing, attention getter. It's a way to engage audiences and teach them while they're having fun. It is available to go to events. There is only one trailer, and there are only those 3 field staff to haul it around the state. So if you think that you might have an interest or an event that you would like to have this presence at, please reach out to Karen Marks or myself, of course, and with a lot of lead time so that we can try to work you into the schedule. The fishing instruction does involve, as I said, everything from habitats to means and methods. Here's an example of the different types of lures and fishing gear that can be used with spin casting or bait casting rods and reels. A little bit of instruction there occurring. You can see on that same vinyl, there's some fly fishing information there below. We do offer, as well as basic fishing, basic and advanced fishing lessons and workshop components, also basic and advanced fly fishing. So we're really excited about this offering. It's a way to teach people. A lot of times the skill involved in a particular outdoor recreation activity can be the barrier itself. Just being afraid to try it, being afraid to lay out the money, and then maybe what if I don't like it? So we love introducing folks, and we'd love to have an opportunity to introduce you and yours to fishing as well. Here's a group shot of our last Angler Education Area Chief meeting. This was just recently, and Nancy was one of our keynote speakers on a panel. All right, before I go on to conservation education, are there any questions about angler and aquatic ed?
No questions yet, but we do have a comment about someone's mentioning a state park that they wish had a tackle loaner program. Is there a way that they can contact about talking about a park that they would like to see a tackle loaner program at?
Oh, yes, and I have guidance here. I would do 3 things. I would send an email to Adam, copy Karen, and send an email to that park superintendent telling them I've heard about the Tackle Loaner program. I know that 38 of your peer parks have Tackle Loaner at their park, and we sure would like for you to have it at yours. And I bet you that there's a way that we can make that happen.
Wonderful. And then we have, do you offer refresher courses for angler instructors who maybe haven't done it for a while?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Just reach right out to Karen Marks. We nurture our active instructor list, and we hesitantly take somebody off of the active role. And every time we have an opportunity to welcome somebody back and refresh their training, we like to take that. So absolutely.
And then we have, are there any license waivers for low income or children?
Well, no license is required to fish in state parks. And so that is one of the most readily available opportunities that we have to address that need. In addition, we can, again, by contacting Karen, and there are, unfortunately, we are a government organization, there are government loops to jump through, but Karen will do most of the jumping. You can contact Karen and ask whether there's a waiver available for a particular event or something, and we can sometimes negotiate those as well.
I'll also put in, Johnny, you mentioned it earlier, but in case this person missed it, you don't need a license to fish within the state parks as well, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then we also have a question is, can the Angler Ed program be available for a group of homeschoolers?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, that's all we've got. Oh,
all
sorry,
right.
I spoke too soon. Do you require a deposit for some sort for the loaner gear that gets checked out? And if so, is that admin work handled by a place where by the place that the equipment is located?
There's not a fee, but we do collect contact information to make sure that we get it back. I think I have to tell you the truth. I'm not familiar with the checkout procedure at every park, but Adam would be. I know there's not a fee involved though. And what was the second part of that?
Is the admin work for it handled by, say, the library or the group that has that tackle support?
Yes, we do not provide staffing with the program. So we do need to select a site that has the ability to check the gear in and out. We will teach you how to maintain the equipment and how to report the usage.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and say that now we are done with questions.
All righty. Okay. All right. Next area is our conservation education program. And I'm really familiar with this, as I was a conservation education manager before I was fortunate enough to become the outreach education director. And so there's a lot of great stuff here. This is where I was earlier mentioning the suite of Project Wild curricula, our community water education programs, and the nature tourism piece. Before. It wasn't too long ago that nature tourism was housed in marketing, and there's been some reorganization there. We're just pleased as punch to have Shelley Plant on board on our team and joining us and helping to teach folks how to recreate and teach them the skills that they need to do so. So let's go ahead and dive right into these individual programs. Project Wild is again, it is a train the trainer model. Kiki Corey she teaches teachers, educators of all stripes across the state how to present the Project Wild workshop in all of its forms. Project Wild is terrestrial. Aquatic Wild is, as the name implies. And Growing Up Wild is for the little biddies, ages, I think, 3 through 7. And that's the only one of the wild curricula that is not K-12. It's just for that young student in the family. But what Wild does is it teaches about wildlife and habitats through an interdisciplinary approach, language arts, history, science, and mathematics. Does a great job of being really engaging in it and using, bringing in components of all those interdisciplinary teaching and into how excited kids are to learn about wildlife and habitats. Lots of really compelling games, oops, I said it, activities that are played in order to really demonstrate, different concepts about how wildlife survive in the wild and how their needs, their habitat needs, and all the ways that we interact with them as well. So in FY21, we trained nearly 1,000 teachers in the suite of Project Wild. Those are formal and informal educators. We really like placing wild educators and wild facilitators who train others in both in school settings and in nature centers, museums, aquaria around the state. It's such a great capacity to have a whole suite of activities in your pocket whether you're doing a summer camp or whether you are leading a particular activity, a beach walk or something like that. You can, if you find the need to teach a particular concept, you can stop and in a few minutes do a really dynamic activity that drives home the point and make sure that those kids are going to remember that because they had such a fun time, an emotional response in the process of learning. We really are wild about Project Wild, and we would love it if you became involved. It's easy to get a workshop. Those workshops are on our calendar on our main website, and you can just sign up for them. They come at a variety of prices, whether if it's a standalone, it's somewhere in the ballpark of $35, and combo classes are around $50. If you've ever had to pay for teacher professional development, those prices are very, very low by today's markets. So I'm going to move on ahead to our community water education. So Texas Waters is a curriculum that we put together in the past, well, I guess in 2015 or so, 2015. Texas Waters, Exploring Water and Watersheds. This is a curriculum that is intended to teach adults all about water. In so doing, they can become a Texas Waters specialist. And this curriculum runs the gamut from basic watershed components to aquatic ecosystems, all of the different components to an aquatic ecosystem and the way that they're dynamic in interactions with one another. It goes into Texas water law and how we have arrived at the type of laws that we have that govern surface water and groundwater, the history of that. Talks about changes, positive and negative, in the ecosystem that are human caused and otherwise, our contributions to climate change and what a dynamic and changing climate does to the ecosystem and the habitats and the wildlife that are supported by them, and makes really good asks and inflection points for folks to take action in their personal life and to think differently about their own choices about water and the environment. It's a great curriculum. I know the guy that put it together. Anyways, we host webinars, 9 or 10 of them a year. That's all done by Melissa Alderson. And we're just so proud of this program. Primarily, the biggest user is your Texas Master Naturalist chapters that you'll find all around the state, 45 or 46 chapters now. Each one of them, they have the opportunity to become a Texas water specialist. And the beauty behind this structure is they have to perform 40 hours of community service, volunteer service each year in exchange for their advanced training. And similarly, for their Texas water specialists, 10 of those service hours need to be dedicated to something of an aquatic nature. So we have a service component and a hands-on component to training folks to understand Texas water and watersheds, and then have a positive effect in either educating others or performing cleanups you know, going to fairs and or getting this curriculum into the hands of Texas water development decision makers and county leaders and that sort of thing. This is a very empowering program that we're really proud of. After this, we're going to talk about Texas Aquatic Science. This is our grades 6 through 12 curriculum that is specifically teaches aquatic science from a Texas standpoint. We did not have such a curriculum until Nancy Herron started many years ago, a partnership between our department, the Hart Research Institute, and the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment. And they put together this curriculum that we modified from the Missouri's Department of Natural Resources, and included all the uniqueness of the Balcones Escarpment and all of the springs that occur as a result of that down-drop, and just the spring ecosystems that are so prevalent in the Hill Country. It's as I said, a middle school and high school curriculum. There is a teacher guide that you would take 2 reams of paper to print. And so it is, again, just chock full of really good aquatic activities, in addition to a student online portal that sees over 300,000 individual students accessing the portal daily throughout the school year. There are 42 certified Texas Aquatic Science field sites around the state. Some of them are in state parks, some of them are in municipal parks, some of them are in nature centers. But the intent there is there's 6 really great field activities in Texas Aquatic Science that require you to be in the field in order to conduct them. And we thought it would just be really wonderful if we would partner with some of our informal science providers around the state to lead those activities and let schools know that if they wanted a science-rich field trip that was not going to be fluff and fill, but there would be a learning opportunity for their students, a curriculum that they could learn establish some prerequisite knowledge before going out on the field trip, and then follow up learning in the classroom to reinforce it. It was a win-win proposition for both the department and for the site and for the participating schools. So we wanted you to be aware of this program as well. Maybe I should pause and see if is there anything that we need to address either about Project Wild, Texas Waters, the Texas Waters program, or Texas Aquatic Science.
We do have a couple questions. You talked a little bit about the Project Wild trainings. Is there a training for growing up wild?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the same sort of program of trainings are available for each of the curricula individually or in combination with one another. Exactly the same.
And then we have one that says, would you recommend TWS for underground water conservation districts education and outreach?
Oh yeah, absolutely. At least as a resource, you know, I mean, they're going to have a lot of their own research and things that are unique to their own groundwater district. But this is a great, what I like to do is tell folks, if you have new staff, if you have all volunteers, this is a really good comprehensive water curriculum to establish a foundation on which then the site can build more uniqueness about their own characteristics.
And then we have, are these programs accessible for children and participating adults with learning or physical disabilities? Are there adaptive materials activities for the programs?
We do try everywhere that we are able to provide those. What I always do is ask you to reach out to the manager of that program when you're considering scheduling and verify that those needs are going to be met, because then we can better respond. Yeah, that would be my best guidance.
And then does the Aquatic Science program build off of the work that's done in Aquatic Wild?
They are similar, and of course, the learning is cumulative, and so you know both of them will contribute to one another, but they're not connected directly. No, we do use the train the trainer model throughout all three of those curricular sources. And so if somebody is interested in being trained on how to use them, there are workshops available. And if you are interested in being a trainer of others, there are those instructor certification workshops available in Texas Waters and Texas Aquatic Science also.
Wonderful. Do you need to be certified to access the Texas Aquatic Science trunks?
Oh, You know, Melissa is in the middle of preparing a loaner trunk for checkout. And I don't know if she has established that criteria yet, but I would ask that question, that respondent to reach directly to Melissa with that question, because I know she's trying to stand up that capability, but I don't yet know that she's got it ready to go.
And then I just looked up the Texas Waters program and saw that the webinar series for 2022 just ended. Will you do this again for 2023? Yes.
And all of those webinars, all the way back to when I started them, they're all available and archived on the website. So you can pick and choose and cherry pick the topics that interest you and to your heart's delight.
And then we have your programs or program managers previously teamed up with a state or local DD council to help make these programs more accessible?
Can you read that again?
Yeah. Have your programs or program managers previously teamed up with a state or local DD council to help make these programs more accessible?
I need to be more familiar with that term. What is a DD council? And I'm afraid to be ignorant about that.
Developmental disabilities.
Oh, yes and no. We have worked individually with teachers in classrooms to try and help adapt and modify activities. We've also worked through our own accessibility coordinator in the department to try and produce some products in Braille and things like that, but we have not reached out to any specific developmental disability councils. I would love to have that contact information if there was a way that we could work at a state level on those types of ventures. I'd love to have their contact information.
Sky just put her email in the chat, so I'll make sure that you get it, Johnny.
Thank you so much.
And
all right.
That's it.
All right. Thank you so much. I like how we're just pausing to kind of get the questions while they're fresh in people's minds, and mine too. Okay, so nature tourism, the nature tourism component of conservation ed is new, but certainly not new to the department. It's just new to outreach and education. This is the Texas Pollinator BioBlitz. It's the Great Texas Birding Classic, the Texas Paddling Trails program that you probably have seen around the state, and then the Great Texas Wildlife Trails program. And I know that you have seen those brown signs around the state marking the presence of those wildlife trails in their various regions. These are just really fantastic programs run by Shelley Plant. She is the coordinator. The wildlife trails and paddling trails programs are both really community-based. We do not have, Shelley has no field staff. There are not field staff that support these programs at all, but rather what happens is communities who are interested in having a wildlife trail or hosting a paddling trail, they will work with her to identify that and then work within the parameters of the program to work on signage and then advertising that to paddlers around the state or wildlife trails users around the state. There's over 950 sites on the wildlife trails, and I have lost count of the paddling trails. But we certainly hope that you know about these already and are already utilizing them, but if this is your first introduction, then please do find your way to a Texas paddling trail or wildlife trail where you can view wildlife. The Great Texas Birding Classic is an annual event that Shelley runs. You can bird in a variety of different ways. It's a competition. You can compete individually, you can compete as a team, you can travel around the state over a certain time period and record the number of species that you observe, or you can form a team and do what's called a big sit. And that's what we usually do at the department. It started out as a pre-COVID 17-foot circle that all of the birders would stay within, and they could use binoculars and spotting scopes in their ears to be able to try and spot and identify birds. They had to see them from within that 17-foot circle though, and then record them over a day. And then the highest species count that the team recorded by a team would be the winner. When in COVID, we had to expand the circle. Now they're 50-foot circles, and gosh, we like that a little bit better. But it's just so much fun to get out with like-minded folks into nature and enjoy wildlife. Then lastly, the Texas Pollinator Bio Blitz, that is just about to kick off. It's next month, October 7th through the 25th, I think. There are folks on the call who can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but it's just about to kick off. And what happens there is we just give folks an opportunity to observe pollinators. We give them daily challenges that they can take pictures of their observations and upload those to social media. Use the hashtag of the year for the BioBlitz, and that's all announced through the program announcements and the emails that go out and our website. But it's just a great way for folks to get out in their very own yards, or go to a nature center, or go to a zoo or something like that. Go to a state park and see some pollinators. A lot of folks learn in the process that, that's beetles, it's bats, it's butterflies, moths, all sorts of insects, wasps, bees. My gosh, people learn quite a bit about the pollination process through the process of just uploading their photos and looking at the photos of others, and the sharing information and education pieces that we have on the website. We're really proud of all of these programs, and they're just ways that you can enjoy nature and maybe have a little bit more confidence because you're doing it with a peer, or you're doing it with some training, or you're doing it with the support of the department. Questions about nature tourism offerings?
We don't have any yet.
Okay, fantastic. If you're a bird nerd, it resonates with you, that birding classic. If you're not, you just need to try it one year and see what you think. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to touch on next the Texas Hunter Education Program, which, by the way, is in its 50th anniversary year. We started the mandatory hunter education program in Texas in 1972. And we are just so immensely proud of the record that we have established. The purpose behind hunter education is to teach safe, responsible, and knowledgeable and involved hunting and shooting sports practices. Look at this record. Oh my gosh. What you're seeing is the start of the program before it became mandatory in 1966, and then mandatory in 72. On the left-hand side of that graph, you can see that the red line and trend line represent the number of accidents per 100,000 license holders. And it was really high back in the 60s and the early 70s. Way too many people were having accidents in the field. We established hunter education voluntarily and then mandatorily in 72 and began training people. And that is what the blue line represents. And you can see that beautiful intersection there in the middle, right about 1994, when the number of people trained and the number of declining incidents crossed. And then as we've continued to train more and more folks, around the state and across the state. The number of incidents and accidents per 100,000 license holders has declined and declined and declined. Hunting is safe and getting safer, as we like to say, and we're really, really proud of this effort. It is required to hunt in the state of Texas, and many other states require the same to hunt in their states. And so what you find is that there is a reciprocal agreement state to state often. Contact our hunter education folks if you have that sort of question. It's very likely that your Texas hunter education certification will meet the need in another state as well. All right. We do many youth and mentored hunts. We do them in state parks, and we do them on private property. We do them on ranches. We do them on leased ground. We require all of our participants to be completely trained and certified in hunter education, as well as firearms and archery range operations, so that they can teach and train safety on the range and make sure that that learning experience is done safely, and that the hunt experiences run safely as well. We train the participants and the mentors, train master mentors to lead those hunts. And this is a large tool that we often use for management in the state. Our deer herd is huge, but in order to maintain the right sort of balances in those deer herds and maintain health and buck to doe ratio and all of those things, in order for the herd to be vibrant and to be able to be sustained by the land, there need to be harvests. And so the individual landowners or state parks, working with their biologists, will set those expectations for harvest and try to manage the herd in that way. And oftentimes our youth and mentored hunts do fit that bill and meet that need. We do that often through primarily through some of our federal funds that we pass through to subrecipients, like the Texas Wildlife Association. Now, they run the Texas Youth Hunting Program, the tyhp.org there that you see on the screen. And they negotiate with landowners to allow our teams to come onto site and introduce youth to hunting, help them meet their management goals, and do the whole thing very safely. They also provide liability insurance to the landowner, so that the landowner doesn't need to be concerned with having that extra burden on top of also hosting. And so it's just a win-win scenario all the way around. The Texas Outdoor Family program that takes families camping, but we've also worked with them to do a mentored hunt for some of their participants. And that was a great time as well. We conduct quite a bit of outreach and awareness through a wide variety of means. We do archery training, air rifle training. We provide a hunting 101 specific courses, and those hunting 101s are, as the manager there, I forgot to say, Steve Hall, as he often says, those hunting 101s are means and methods courses and species. So you could take a turkey 101 to learn all about turkeys, all their habits, how they, what their habitat requirements are, what their breeding season is, what their challenges are in their ecosystem, and how they move about the environment. So species specific, or means and methods. So you might, similar to Karen's program, and you might specialize in fly fishing. Well, there's going to be rifle 101. There's going to be muzzleloader 101, archery, bow hunting 101, and on and on. All of the different means and methodologies for hunting and harvesting game. Folks love hearing as well that you know, there's not many sources that you can go to get local, organic local protein sources, like if you're a hunter or if you know a hunter. So we are heavily engaged with our food banks and Hunters for the Hungry around the state, support the folks that are needy, and food banks, and different ways to feed the hungry around our great state. And so we're really happy to be able to provide that protein source as well. The Outdoor Woman program, I'm going to jump into here in a moment with a lot of slides, but there are the Outdoor Woman program is a very vibrant program where we teach ladies a very many wide variety of skills about how to recreate in the outdoors in a really cool setting. Again, I'll talk about that in just a moment. Continuing with our outreach efforts beyond basic hunter safety, we hold workshops regularly for internal and external partners. For media partners, it's called Hunting for Conservation. It's typically a one-day workshop with an optional afterwards follow-on of a hunt or a live fire activity. And there's an optional hunter education certification available after attending this conservation workshop as well. It is all about the way that I started this conversation, the North American model, carrying capacity for the land for different species and the way they interact between one species and another, how to all the different various means of harvesting game, whether it's by firearms or by archery equipment, primitive tools or modern. But this is a great workshop so that folks can understand that the user pay model robustly funds our system, but we desperately need people to be involved and to be entering whatever gateway that they can to the department and participating, spending their dollars, their recreation dollars, in a way that supports habitat and the species that live there. All right, the Becoming an Outdoors Woman program. Wow, this is just such a neat program. I wish that we could do more of it. But this program is aimed, as the name implies, specifically at women, but of course, anyone can attend. We have had many men attend and become certified through BOW. It's all comers are welcome. It does provide a really safe and supportive, non-competitive atmosphere. We really do try to be sensitive. We tell all of our instructors to check their mansplaining at the door and don't assume that anybody knows anything and has any foundational knowledge. Stop, cut the acronyms and just meet people where they are. They're there to learn and how to recreate in the outdoors, and everybody started somewhere. 3.5-hour class sessions that really provide an opportunity for a deep dive into learning, skills development, question and answer, and hands-on experience in many different types of skills. The shooting sports, obviously, they are really robustly offered and taken by the majority of the participants in BOW. In addition to shooting sports, of course, lots of aquatic activities. There's almost always a kayaking class that often does as well have a stand-up paddling component, fly fishing, rod and reel fishing, lots of different ways. Bow fishing is also often offered if you'd like to use your archery gear in the harvest of fish. Or you can be completely non-consumptive and practice catch and release. There are other activities, of course. We want people to be able to have the skills and the confidence to do things independently in the wild. And so we teach birding, we teach Dutch oven cooking, we teach a little woodworking where it's needed. We teach mountain biking, how to set up a tent. We teach trailering. We teach some chainsaw skills where they are needed for working in the woods, pruning a tree or something like that. There are so many skills that are often taught at our BOW workshops, and they are constantly changing and morphing: orienteering, survival, game processing. As people come through BOW, what we often find is about 40% or so are returning participants, because it takes oftentimes 2 or 3 visits to get your fill of all of the skills that you're wanting to learn and get better at. And then people are bringing back friends and introducing them. But what we find is that after those ladies have attended a couple of workshops, 9 times out of 10, they're wanting to volunteer and be a part of a solution of teaching others the same skills. So as they do that, they bring their own interests and their own skills to BOW, and that's why those offerings continue to change and morph over time. You know, we find that there's a real positive influence in people's attitudes and in the activities that they're choosing to participate in nature. And, you know, there are just so many things that happen at BOW, and relationships that are formed are really turning out to be lifelong in many cases. We're proud of the reach that we are finding with our diversity and inclusion efforts, especially in this particular area. It is a real big win for us. And we just wish that we could do more. We do 2 workshops a year. They are 100 to 150 ladies. Usually they fill up really quickly. So when the offering is coming available, there's information on the website, and folks can sign up to get a notification. And then as soon as that registration goes live, usually within the hour, it's full. But it's a heavy lift for our staff, and so we have not been able to find a way to build this particular capacity in a meaningful way, other than we are working on trying to do some one day, just really focused on a particular skill or set of few skills that we might be able to launch some of those around the state. They're about $200 a person, and that includes everything: lodging, meals, instruction, equipment use. And there are scholarships available. Heidi Rayo runs the BOW program for us under Steve Hall's leadership. Moving along with some more hunter education, another outreach component is our shooting sports. Here's another way that we pass through those federal dollars to subrecipients. Our relationships with Texas AgriLife and A&M, the 4-H shooting sports, clay target, skeet and trap, rifle, air pistol, muzzle loader, and that big giant mobile range trailer that goes around the state. So many people, so many kids earned their college or money towards their college scholarships towards college. They shoot, sometimes they shoot in college and continue to compete long after their high school experience. And we're really happy to be able to provide them with that particular type of skills development. In addition, we provide bow hunter education. So this is unique to, this is not a substitute for basic hunter safety. But if you're going to be using archery equipment and you're going to be doing so in a place that requires specific bow hunter education certification, well, then that you come to us. And we provide that for Texas hunters, as well as folks that are going to travel to other states and use their archery gear to hunt in other states. There is a classroom, of course, and live fire component to both basic hunter education and to bow hunter ed as well. Let's pause there before we jump into the outreach and recruitment group. Are there any questions that folks might have about hunter education?
We have quite a few questions about becoming an outdoor woman.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, so one is, how can maybe a region of the state be suggested that maybe y'all haven't been to in a while?
You would reach out to Heidi Rayo. She's the program manager. And at the end of the presentation, if you'll hold on, there's I'm going to give everybody's email addresses. And then of course, Sarah, I'll make this presentation available as well if you'd like to just be able to maybe send them a snip of those few slides afterwards. But yeah, you'd reach right out to Heidi Rayo. We're constantly looking for sites that that will meet the need, be able to host that many folks with lodging and dining and the outdoor space to do all those kinds of activities. So if you have a site that you think meets that need in a different part of the state than what we've been able to do, bring it on and suggest that. Heidi will check that out, and we'll work with the venue to execute the agreements that we need. We typically try to move it around. We've done a lot in Brownwood. We've done quite a few out in Palestine, Texas, and we just almost held an event in at the ranch out in West Texas near Big Bend. But we ran into some contract difficulties there and had to cancel. So, but yeah, suggest a site. We would love to be able to bring it to a new venue.
Wonderful. Is there a minimum age to participate in becoming an outdoors woman?
I don't believe there is. I know that we've had many folks who attended with family members who were minors, and but I can't say that I have those any of those details really right on the top of my mind. Heidi certainly would if you'll either visit our website or reach out to her directly. And if there's a particular need, you know, we are very responsive to folks being able to still meet their family's needs, but attend.
How can folks volunteer for becoming an outdoor woman?
Volunteer to participate or volunteer to lead and instruct others?
I'm guessing to lead.
Okay, well, a great way to start is by attending. That way you'll get to know all that's offered and all of the different players. Reach right out to Heidi, I would say, and let her know about your willingness. And then I bet you that then she would like to probably meet with you and invite you to a BOW and work with you to get you folded into the instructor corps. The more the merrier.
For youth hunter education, can you tell me more about the 4-H hunter education?
Well, it's not different. The 4-H program is a shooting sports program. That's the scholastic clays. It's so like skeet and trap. But the 4-H program also does teach basic hunter education, the same program that is taught around the state to every hunter ed student.
And to the person that asked that, I think the person you would reach out to in 4-H would be Larry Highsmith. And I'll put that email in the chat in just a second.
And that's exactly correct.
Let's see here. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Okay, outreach and recruitment. This is the group that does as I said in the beginning, our big outreach presence at large statewide or regional events, the National Archery in the Schools program, as well as all of our community archery program offerings. So here we go with those large scale outreach events, like the State Fair of Texas, the big Ducks Unlimited Expo, which is a try it before you buy it kind of sporting goods extravaganza up at the Texas Motor Speedway in May or June of the year. Mayfest, the Baytown Nurture Nature Fest, Poteet Strawberry Festival, the Austin Powwow. Combined attendance at these events is over 300,000 Texans every year and growing. And we are looking for opportunities to establish our outreach presence at other venues as staff capacity allows. And we really just, what we like to do is provide a space for all of our different entities around the department. You know, that big org chart that I first showed with the 13 divisions down at the bottom. Wildlife joins us, law enforcement joins us, state parks joins us, inland and coastal fisheries. We try to have a big presence there, have some game wardens, and so you can really have a good experience and an introductory time with staff and programs from Texas Parks and Wildlife. Let me say just a couple more things about this. Once again, this is done with a staff of 2. So we do rely heavily on volunteers for all of these large outreach events. We engage hundreds of volunteers at each of these, at everywhere from assisting with parking or directing people how to get to the Texas Parks and Wildlife location, or, you know, hosting a tabling inside, you know, the ag barn at the state fair, or, you know, wherever we might be set up, engaging with the public and that sort of thing. We often rely on program volunteers like Karen's and Steve's and Melissa's and now Rob Owen, who runs the outreach and recruitment program. We rely on their volunteers heavily to bring those things about. And there's a space for you as well. The community archery program, this is what we do is we facilitate training to train people in USA Archery Level 1 or Level 2 instructor certification. USA Archery is the program that trains and certifies young archers all around the country. This is the pathway to collegiate archery and professional archery beyond that. So USA Archery is, these are the same folks, many of the same shooters that represent us in the Olympics came up through USA Archery levels. So this is that piece. This is tournament target archery. In addition to that, we facilitate training in introducing people to bow hunting and bow fishing. So how to use their archery equipment to do those 2 activities. The training and curriculum is available for partner and for park programming as well. So all of these things we can teach you to teach at your site or in your groups or at your school or church or wherever. And then we host a campaign every year called Bow Hunter by Fall, where we introduce, or we invite people who maybe they've only just thought about becoming a bow hunter and they've never actually taken a step. Well, we encourage them to sign up for an email subscription service where we send regular reminders of and kind of milestones of, you know, it's this time of year and these are the things that you should be focusing on right now. Skills development, you know, locating a site, and here are some resources to help you do those things. And don't forget to check in with your mentor and, you know, those sorts of things to really just hold folks' hand as much as we can through that first year of skills acquisition and becoming a bow hunter. The National Archery in the Schools program involves, gosh, 85, 90,000 students every year shooting in schools across the state. Of those shooters, close to 3,000 or so compete in the state tournament. 2,900 shot in 2022. We're always recruiting the next generation with developing those outdoor skills. We're about 800 schools around the state, and we try to add about 100 new schools every single year. So we're actively recruiting schools and trainers to teach archery. It's safe, it's fun. It teaches self-discipline, and you're competing against yourself. So many things like focus and setting objectives and setting targets and setting goals and personal self-discipline and all of those things. There are so many skills that are taught and learned through archery, and it's a lifetime sport. And here we go. These are those slides for contact information. So before I go further, are there any questions about Rob Owen's group, either our outreach offerings or things that happen in our community archery programs?
I am not seeing any other than contact information.
Okay, all right. Hold on just a second, almost there. Yeah, perfect. Okay, here we go. All right, so here is my contact information, johnny.smith@tpwd.texas.gov. It's that way all the way down the page, all 3 pages, the person's name, and the rest of that will be identical. You can also reach out to the team or to a program where I'm providing a specific email, like there, as you can see, Angler EDU at TPWD, Outdoor Woman at TPWD. There's Heidi's email for the people who are most interested in BOW. Karen Marks and Adam Comer on this page for Tackle Loaner. I'm including down here as well our boater education folks. They are over in our law enforcement division, but they can be contacted as well if they have questions regarding boater education. And I'm going to go ahead and on to the next page. Conservation Ed, there's Melissa, the manager, Kiki over Project Wild, and Shelly in Nature Tourism. Hunter Ed staff. Down at the bottom, if you'd like to learn more about our efforts to try and recruit and retain and reactivate people in the hunting and shooting sports, fishing or boating, Emmanuel Salas is the hunting and shooting sports coordinator, and Jason Mercer is our fishing and boating coordinator. Feel free to reach right out to them as well if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing in those areas, or if you'd like to participate. And then lastly, there's outreach and recruitment under Rob Owen's leadership. And those emails. Okay, how are we doing on time? 3:15. Are we okay, Sarah?
I think we're good. I don't
Okay.
have any new questions in the chat.
Okay, well, I need a soapbox moment to wrap it up, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And then we'll see if there's any other interaction that folks need. So what I did is I asked each of the managers, so if we were at the end of this presentation and I gave you an opportunity, what do you want to say about your program? What's your pitch? So Karen said, catch some fun, take the family fishing. Research shows that kids who spend time outdoors in nature are healthier, happier, and smarter. I think you guys might recognize that. Melissa says that she wants people to be able to enjoy the outdoors and enjoy what they're looking at. Nature tourism teaches, birding and opportunity and creates access to nature. And she hopes that you'll take advantage of all of those programs. Steve and Hunter Ed, he says, I want all Texans, not just children, to better understand that hunting, fishing, target shooting, and related outdoor activities are a huge part of the nature and conservation equation by providing that much needed funding for habitat management, land acquisition, research, outdoor education, and administration, creating partnerships, grants, and teaching people to be safe, responsible, and ethical participants in the outdoors. Well said, Steve. Rob in outreach and recruitment, he says, we're looking for nonprofit partners that are interested in sharing beginning archery skills with their audiences. We offer accredited certifications and all of those in USA Archery and basic archery instruction. And he would love to work with you or your volunteers or your venue's staff to give you guys an archery component in what you do at your site. For the Get Outside program, he says, we need volunteers. No, he says he's seeking partners there, and also it's sharing conservation messaging that's made available through recreation and resource-based educational experiences in Texas. And we're so looking forward to the potential of RAWA funding that it might bring to our department and to all those non-game species and their habitats across the state. And then lastly, my ask is this: I'd sure like to work with your member organizations and members to establish volunteer leadership in each of our O&E programs, right all across the offerings that we have, wherever your folks find interest, so that we can better reach children and families who are connected with TCIN, but not yet connected with TPWD. And we'd love to partner with you in that way. Now, I guess if there's any other questions or comments, I'd just love to hear those.
Yeah, we've got some great comments in here. Thank you for all the good information. Thank you for speaking with us about all the education offerings. And then Michelle has, thank you so much for this information about all the available programming through Texas Parks and Wildlife. We would love to have some training for a groundwater education collaborative. I think Stephanie will reach out. All of our students deserve an opportunity to learn about outdoor education and lifetime activities. Thank you.
Okay.
Keely has, thank you, Johnny. Lots of great info. Excited to see how we can incorporate some of this into our programs, into programs of our Junior Master Naturalist program here in San Antonio.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you, Johnny. It was fantastic hearing about all of these programs. I even learned some having sat in this department for 2 years. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So thank you.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. And I really mean it. I'm hoping that you all have a better understanding of how we're funded and your part in that. And I just hope that there's a way for you to find yourself volunteering for the department in the future. We certainly need your leadership, and you're all leaders in my book. You wouldn't be involved with this great organization if you weren't. So thanks for the time, and we hope to hear from you. And
I would be remiss at this time of year if I didn't remind all of you on the call to register for our summit. This year we're going to be in Austin on December 7th through 9th. It's a great opportunity to hear all about the programs that not only Texas Parks and Wildlife is offering, although we have some great sessions from TPWD staff already slated for the summit, and also all of the programs, a lot of the programs that are happening around the state, and learning about some innovative new programming as well. Would love to see you all there, and putting the link to the summit in the chat. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Everyone have a great afternoon.